Media, RUI Construction, Conway Asphalt, Delta Innovative Services, VentureWire, Platinum sponsors, SRM, Service Master, HL Restoration, our gold sponsors, Elite Automation, Zipco, BasePoint, Hygienes, J.E. Dunn, Construction, MW Lawn and Landscape, Superior Moving, our silver, KCAV, bronze level, John A. Marshall, Herman Miller, Helm, and our professional group members, Gilbane Transition Planning and Management, and FM Software Consulting, Link, and Hallmark. Also, a special thanks to Bobby and KCAV for helping us set up our technology online portion. For today's presentation, I'll have Ken Scott come up and
Thank you,
take it from
Ryan.
there.
Appreciate it. Could we begin with our panelists, if they could come forward, please? Their seats here. Bobby's guys are blocked off, so we're gonna. Sorry. You're good.
Yes, before you get some of question, Bobby, how many people do we have online?
12.
Well, that's great. Excellent. So we've got our, a lot of them are students that are remoting in, and so Bobby's been working hard, and several of the other committees to work at getting our remote access to come. So you can see down there on the bottom of the picture that they can see our panelists as well. So thank you, Bobby, for working on that.
Well. Okay, very good. So our panel, number one, thank you all for sharing your time with us today and collaborating on a very unique topic. So our subject matter is disaster recovery and prevention and some of those kinds of things. I'm Ken Scott. I'm with Only Tens LLC. My great partner here.
And I like those from Spectro.
Yes. So we're going to tag team on this program. It will be interactive. You will have time to answer and ask questions. Basically, in any disaster, especially related to buildings, the facilities professionals are the first responders, first to get called, first to make the calls, first to bring in their contracted partners. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then what I'd like to do is begin with each of the panelists kind of introducing yourself, your company, what you do specifically. We could do that quickly.
Ready?
Yes. Yes, please.
Hi, I'm Valerie McCracken. I'm with HL Restoration. We've been around since 2008. We are an offshoot of GC, Heron Construction, so we operate as a GC as well.
And I'm Robin Atkins with ServPro, and ServPro is it's basically a locally owned franchise system. We've been around since 1967, so it's a lot of experience there.
Hi, I'm Brett Clem. I'm with Zipco Contracting, Zipco Cleaning and Restoration, full service restoration general contractor. We also do a lot of interior tenant finish work. I think we've, George, are we celebrating 22 years, I think, this year in business. So it's been around for a while.
Ryan Nitschke, I'm with Commercial Restoration Company, or CRC, as most people know us. Full service restoration company from mitigation to reconstruction. I think we've been around since about 2014, not quite as long as some of them, but you have a national presence and a local presence.
So Janelle is gonna take our panelists through a list of questions here shortly, but to begin, I would like to ask each of you to share an example of a disaster that you've responded to recently. What happened, what went right, what went wrong, and maybe what should the facilities professionals have learned from this particular example?
The example I have is a church. It's a pretty large church. They have multiple sites, but in one particular building, they had a preschool that was in operation that was getting ready to pick up again for the school year, and they had ongoing water issues. What went wrong was that they tried to fix the water issues themselves. That didn't work out very well. They couldn't really figure out where the problem was coming from. So our superintendent, who has 30 years of experience. He came in and solved the problem. He found 10 sources of water intrusion. There was lots of mold that had developed organic growth.
Opportunity.
Yes, opportunities. Yes. So we came in, got all the surfaces cleaned, obviously diagnosed the problem, fixed the source of it, and then had school up and running by the time they were supposed to start. So that went well.
Thank you. Robin?
Yeah, so we were called in to a school district, a fire at an early education center, and the fire was an electrical fire, so it didn't really create a big flaming type fire. It was more of a soot issue, and that soot actually was pushed throughout the entire building. And so what went right, basically the facilities manager on site called in the professionals right away. So as a result of that, we were able to help them get the building back up and running in 5 days. And so they didn't have to go through, I mean, with early education, you've got parents dropping kids off, and so they don't have any place for their kids to go. So they were obviously invested in making sure that they could make that happen quickly. We also had called in an industrial hygienist to come in and map out the soot areas so that we were essentially cleaning only the affected areas, which also helped to speed the recovery of the building. What went wrong would be, the only thing really is that not really the facilities manager's issue per se, but I've seen this in so many facilities, closets or rooms where people think that's a storage area. And so as facilities managers, you have an ongoing battle, I would assume, with how you deal with people's clutter. And so with the school, it was hard to determine what was personal and what was the district's. So that may have delayed things just a little bit.
Thank you.
Well, theme of the day is school, so and I can't think that quick on my feet, I guess, today. So I'm going to stick with the school that I had as well. Same situation, just prior to school starting, about 45 days actually before school was supposed to start. Early on a Saturday morning, a water fountain decided to just give it up, and from Saturday morning to Monday morning, it ran for 48 hours, flooding about 12,000 square feet. Affected classrooms, cafeterias, restrooms, administration rooms. Pretty significant damage. I wouldn't say that there was anything that really went wrong other than just the fact that it was found 48 hours later. But it was more just difficulties that we run into on every job. Every job's different. Every facility is different. So we're always dealing with different materials. Wet drywall, wet insulation, always has to be removed. Broadloom carpets that had sat wet for 48 hours now delaminated. So on a very short time crunch, those had to be ordered and expedited. One thing that we really prided ourselves on there, they had a custom vinyl wallpaper mural that the kids in the school had actually drawn, and they had this produced into this vinyl wallpaper. Just absolutely gorgeous. It's very important to them, and everybody on the panel here can speak to this. You can't drive through vinyl wallpaper. It's a vapor barrier, but we were able to save it actually from drying from the backside. So we took out some finishes and cabinets on the backside of this mural that allowed us access to dry from both sides, and was actually able to keep that mural, which was very important to them. So that was really cool. Some things that they could have done maybe to prevent it or at least lessen the effect. Daily monitoring in an environment like that would be good. Whoever's on call, who's ever responsible for the facility, if they've got somebody that just does a quick walkthrough daily, if they'd have caught it within 8 hours, it would have obviously expedited things, and a lot more of the finishes could have been saved. And maybe it would have only been a couple thousand square feet versus 12,000. Another thing that they could have done is actually through use of some of the new tech today. Water fountains aren't a big one, but boiler rooms, HVAC systems, any main water components, water heaters, those areas and those mechanical areas. There are tech devices now, flood sensors, water sensors that are also tied on to automated shutoffs, which will catch a lot of that stuff. And those areas are typically where we're seeing a lot of the source. But those would be a couple things that I think that you guys could employ.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll change the theme a little bit to hotels. So we had a hotel Christmas Eve, one of the hard freezes. They had a pipe break, skeleton crew. Nobody knew how to shut the water off. They couldn't get the fire department out there because they were busy. They couldn't get a plumber out there because I don't know why, it was Christmas Eve probably. Water ran for 18 hours. So it was on the fourth floor. It went all the way down from the fourth floor to the lower level and flooded 40 units and 5 hallways, I think. So basically what went wrong there right out of the gate was they did not have their staff trained to know where the water shut off was and how to shut it off. So it just continuously ran and created a way bigger problem than it should have for them. What went right was they were willing to work with us, allow us to come in, set up containments, do what we needed to do to keep them operating for the rest of their facility, because obviously they're losing a lot of money with their units down. So all in all, it turned out pretty good. It started out pretty rough, but that's one of the biggest things that I could give everybody as a takeaway is try to train your staff and even have a site plan of where that shut off is so that everybody knows. Because when somebody's not there, the person that doesn't know isn't there, it can be a way bigger problem.
Great, thank you. Thank you all for sharing that. So Janelle is going to take you through a series of questions and
I'll spread it out so you don't have to answer all the questions, but we'll start here with Val. Okay, Val, what's the very first call a facility manager should make when they discover fire damage, water damage, etc., and why?
Well, the obvious answer to his point is whoever knows how to shut the water off. Hopefully it's your staff that is on site. If it's a fire, 911, but then the next person is not your insurance company, it's us. Your insurance does not dictate who you use. They may offer you some references, but they have to work with who you choose. So I think that's an important thing for people to understand, that you don't have to wait for your insurance to come in and tell you what needs to be done. It's your responsibility as the, either the tenant or the owner or whatever, to get the problem fixed as soon as possible, not wait for some adjuster to show up and tell you, how he's going to rip you off. Insurance, are they not on this panel?
they gave me their script in advance because they knew they'd be trash. Right out of the gate, first panelist, bang.
Thanks, Val. All right, Robin, what's the most common mistake facility managers make in the first 24 hours?
Not having an emergency process or plan in place. And so it delays the ability to be effective and stop the hemorrhaging, whether it's figuring out where the water shutoff is or how your people should be responding, because certainly safety's first and the highest priority is to make sure the people are safe. So that would be probably the biggest, most common, or not common, but it would be.
In your experience, do you see that more often than not having a plan?
I think, yes, I do think that it is very surprising that people, organizations, in some very large organizations, don't have an emergency process in place. They have an emergency process for, a tornado or that kind of thing, and fire drills and that kind of thing, but to specifically know who to call if they have flooding, extensive flooding. A lot of times people will Google someone at 1 o'clock in the morning and not really know who they're getting to their site. And so there's no vetting that goes on with that.
All right, you ready? How do you balance speed of repair with documentation for insurance?
Documentation for insurance doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be a non-starter, if you will. If you're using a reputable contractor, they're familiar with the language, they're familiar with the terms that your adjuster or whoever you're working with your insurance company is speaking, right? So if they have never worked in the industry before and they're pushing various repairs or various upgrades or this or that, things that just weren't there to begin with, you're going to run into some problems. But for the vast majority of the reputable guys out there, like the ones here on the panel, we know what's acceptable. We know what items need to be approved. So there's really no argument there. You know, the scope is what the scope is. Drywall is drywall. Everything's a square foot, linear foot type measurement in the accounting, in the software that's used to estimate these losses. So if the scope of work is correct, there's should be really no haggling on the repair. That doesn't stop us from still documenting what we did, especially on the mitigation side. The first priority is get in there, get it taken care of, and do as little damage as possible, but stop further damage and truly mitigate the project or the damage. And as long as you've got the photo documentation necessary for it, and that all matches up with the scope that we provide them of basically just a recap of what we've done, you can take that scope, walk it room to room, and see that, yeah, there's 50 foot of drywall removed, and the pictures show that. So, like I said, it all goes back to a reputable contractor that's used to working with insurance companies that know what that know what your insurance company is looking for, and then just making sure all the I's are dotted, T's are crossed. It's that simple.
All right. What are some overlooked secondary damages that can escalate cost if ignored?
So, well, your 4-letter word,
Yeah.
mold, would be probably one of the biggest ones. So, I mean, the key is if you have a building and have a water loss, the quicker you can get it dried out, the better off you are. If it sits wet for multiple days, you're going to have the situation where growth can start forming and creating bigger problems that are in turn going to cost you a lot more money to take care of. And a lot of times your policy might not cover that portion of it. Especially if you have a power outage at the same time. Stabilizing the building is the biggest priority. You know, if we need to get a generator in there to be able to run drying equipment, that's what needs to be done to protect your asset. Because if you let it sit for 4 days and that growth starts, instead of just going in and drying it out, now you're tearing out a bunch of stuff, or, you know, having a protocol from a hygienist to clean up all the mold, and it can definitely run the dollars up tremendously. So that is probably the biggest one, I would say.
Very good. So now we are going to hear from the insurance side of things. Oh, by the way, Valerie, they've asked you to speak at their annual next week. Braden Beal, he's with IMA, he's a client advocate. He was unable to be here today, but he did follow up with some advice, and we have sent Braden some questions, and I'm going to read the question. I'm going to tell you what his solution is. So first question to Braden was, what documentation makes your job easiest and speeds up the claims, right? That was brought up here. First of all, he said photos and videos, you know, do not cut back on any of that. Second, he said maintenance logs and inspection records. He said one of the bigger issues that adjusters and companies have problems with is, was the facilities properly maintained, especially if you have a broken pipe or the boiler that was discussed earlier. Like if you cannot prove that you have maintenance related to those items, then that may be more difficult to get that claim paid. He goes on to say invoices, repairs and estimates and replacement of cost breakdowns from trusted vendors. So we have 4 of those right up here. he goes, especially if they match what your policies are saying, as Fred talked about earlier. So to make sure that what is the scope is matching what you actually have covered. And then incident reports. If you've had past incidents related to this or other issues, to make sure that those are documented and that you can show those to your insurance company. And then finally, to that question, he said, it's helpful to make sure that your building plans and your equipment and service contracts are updated and in one location. So those adjusters, if asked, can have access to those. He also suggested that you put together a claim binder so that you have all of those kinds of things, the emergency preparedness, the water shut off, all of those kinds of things in one file or binder, so that's accessible by anybody. So his second question was, what are the flags that you see that will delay or deny coverage? Number one, late reporting, waiting a few days or a few weeks. That is a red flag. Number two, incomplete documents. No photos, the work has been completed, the scope doesn't match the policy. Number three, unapproved vendors. Partners that do not do this every day for a living. Number four, lack of maintenance or documentation for lack of maintenance. Roofing failures, HVAC failures, etc. And his fifth issue is misunderstanding actually what is covered in your policy. And he specifically references like water backup or sewer backup. So you might check on that. Braden's third question was, how can facilities managers prepare ahead of time so that claims do go more smoothly? First and foremost, review the claims, review your policy with whoever manages your insurance. So I suspect a lot of you here are managed by some sort of a risk management team or something like that. So he said it's a good idea for the facilities professionals to understand exactly what's in the policy and what is covered and what is not, and what your deductible is. He suggests conducting a mock loss drill where you actually had to go through, make some photographs, contact the vendor, put your list together. He recommends establishing a vendor relationship in advance. So put together all your vendor lists, issue contracts, non-itemized blanket contracts on call. So you already have any one of these four amazing companies locked in. You don't have to go through the paperwork. You already know what their hourly rates are or what their markups are going to be. So you're not doing that as you're trying to clean up the disaster. He also suggests keeping, again, the digital claims kit available and making sure that more than one person knows where that is. And then perform quarterly facility walkthroughs, documenting the maintenance and making sure that that's available for inspection. And then his final question was, how do adjusters view preventive maintenance versus emergency calls? He said adjusters in all insurance company, they absolutely love preventive maintenance because it's a signal of positive risk administration. He suggests that a lot of companies actually make inspections and do preventative service. They don't have any documents stating so. So it's as if it never happened. His final takeaway would be preventative maintenance isn't just operational, it's strategic. It's strategic risk management that can protect coverage and accelerate claim resolution. So IMA, if you're not familiar, probably the second largest company here in Kansas City. They do a lot, they actually bond and cover a lot of construction subcontractors, a lot of general contractors. So that's Braden's top 5 questions.
Now we're gonna walk through questions for all the panelists, and some of this might be a little bit redundant, but I'll give you a choice for pass or play. I know that when you introduced yourself, you talked through some disasters you've gone through, but does anybody have anything that like stands out, like your most challenging emergency you've ever dealt with and how you worked through that?
I'll share one. There was a 200 by 1,000 square foot ballast roof system. So the wind caught it where it wasn't terminated correctly. blew all the rock to one part of the roof, which then caved it in. And that did about $4.5 million worth of damage. That was a big one. So we were able to get in there and stabilize everything and then repair it. So that was a big project. So we do more than just, suck up water. I think, all of us feel that way. We're more than just extractors. Another one, a bus ran through the brick columns that was holding up a building, and fire department and police department came and pulled the bus out. But then the building was obviously very unstable. So we came in, after hours and stabilized the building to keep everybody safe, and then did the repairs for that. So those are kind of some interesting ones that don't involve just water or fire. Senior living is a big one that really takes a lot of TLC. It's not just dealing with the structure, it's dealing with these residents. If any of you have, parents or grandparents in senior living, it's really important to respect their space and be professional. So we had one where 26 units, essentially apartments, were affected by water loss. So we moved, all those people out, had to have all their contents removed and cleaned and put back in. And of course, these, poor people are asking their facility manager and the folks at the senior living facility, when can we go home? When can we go home? And so that was just a really sensitive job that I feel like we did a good job on, and everyone was happy and got back home as quickly as possible.
Yeah, so we had a large courthouse that basically the mechanical room on the basement level had the walls had eroded, and mud sludge had basically filled the mechanical room. So we were called in to take care of that. And we said, absolutely do not charge the building until, we get back in here on Monday. Somebody didn't get that instruction and they charged the building. And so water basically flooded basically 11 stories. The challenge with that was that it's a historic building and horsehair plaster, and you can't just go in and just take it out. And so we had to get very creative in the way that we were drying behind the walls using different systems. And they were able to conduct business in the building on a limited basis while we were drying. Of course, it was inconvenient, loud, drying so loud always, but I think that it was actually not fun per se, but I love that our team had to really be creative and come up with a solution that would preserve the historic architecture of the building and still return it back in a safe manner. So.
Same question still?
Yep.
Okay. Probably one of the more interesting jobs I've seen was where a 12-inch water line under a slab on grade. I think the building was probably 120,000 square feet. 12 foot underground, a 12-inch main broke. Interestingly, not enough. It happened on the day there was an earthquake in Oklahoma. Don't know if it was tied, but ultimately we had to dig down inside basically the mechanical room, dig 12 foot down. So a hole inside of this building, 12 foot down, to get to this main to allow access. And it was determined that it just wasn't installed properly. The elbow wasn't rotted into the ground and just caused it to separate. And I've never personally seen an earthquake or been to California to see heaved concrete, but I saw 8-inch thick concrete that was heaved 4 foot in the air inside of a building. It was very unusual. Really, though, overall, the most challenging jobs that we face are the ones that are on tight time frames, and it seems like everybody's on a tight time frame when you're talking about your business or your school. It never happens at a good time. So, but all we can do is react and be prepared to react with the right personnel. And back to my example with the school, putting that back together and getting everything back ready for the kids to go back in really was a testament to our project management staff that has the experience, and not only internal experience, but we've got to have a huge network of trade partners out there, and have them 2, 3, 4, 5 deep, because when we need something now, we can't wait for somebody that's got, 4 months of backlog. It just doesn't work. So we've got to be very deep in the trades and be able to react with whoever can come to the table at that point. So internal, in-house experience and know-how, as well as having very good trade partners.
Do you have anything you'd like to add to the pile?
Sure. So probably one that sticks out in my head is we got brought into a fire at a small university. They had a fire in their kitchen behind their dining hall, and pretty much the whole kitchen and dining area was total loss. School was still in session, and I think there was roughly 5,000 students that went to school there. And they were bringing in catering to feed them, but that's really not a feasible option in this building. By the time you got engineer drawings, architect drawings, I mean, it was going to take months just to even get started on the reconstruction of it. So we had to come up with a way for them to be able to have a kitchen and feed their students, because they're all on meal plans through the college and so on and so forth. So we brought in mobile kitchens on 53-foot semi-trailers. We had a couple of those, and we had to bring in, mobile reefer trucks for them to store stuff, set them up a temporary, basically dining hall in a gymnasium they had that they didn't really use anymore. But along with setting up that stuff, there was a lot more to it than just bringing those trailers in. We had to get power to them, water. We had to have tanks for the gray water, that they're using running through the dishwashers and stuff like that. So, like he's saying, and I think they can all attest to, it's being able to come up with viable solutions quickly and make it happen so that you can keep everybody operating, not lose a bunch of money because you're shut down and so on and so forth.
That's a really good thing to know. Like, I didn't personally haven't gone through something like that, but just knowing that that's the extra thing you actually do and set up. That's
Yeah, I mean, there's always more than one way to skin the cat. I mean, a lot of times and I'm sure they can agree, we get told no by a lot of people when we're trying to make something happen, the city or somebody, when we have to go back to the drawing board and come up with a more creative idea that they will accept to get these people back up and running.
That's awesome. Thank you. All right, next question. I know you each kind of talked about things that FMs can do to prepare, but besides having an emergency plan, having your call list together, knowing where your water shutoff are, do you have anything else would be a good tip for emergency situations for FMs to be prepared?
I would say just have the phone number actually saved in your phone, as like emergency or something, to where if it's 2 a.m. and you're coming out of a dead sleep, you don't have to try to think of like, oh, who am I supposed to call here? So whoever it is that you choose, have the number in your phone, so it's easily accessible.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. Because, frankly, hopefully you're not having a lot of emergencies. And so you may forget who that person was, or you haven't seen them for a while. You haven't, it's like, I don't know if I have the number, but also have a backup person that has that information. And I know we are all trained and ready to go to be up at 2 o'clock in the morning, and you have an emergency. That's what we do. So, yeah.
Part of the reminder is actually our business development folks. I got Richie and George here in the back. You got my back today. Thanks, guys.
3 of the wolves.
Yeah, they'll help you with those reminders as far as staying in touch. Because we may see you 6 times a year and you may never call. You may never have an event. I hope that's the case. I just want you to be ready. But those guys will help you. Help stay in front of you. That way you know who to call. But yeah, absolutely. Make sure that all of your staff know, because I assume not any one of you is going to be on call 24/7. I hope that's not the case, because I've been on the other end of that line or been that one responsible, and nobody wants to get burnt out. So make sure all of your staff is familiar with who your approved vendors are, because when something does happen, it may just be that maybe it's the new guy Maybe it's a temp or somebody that's working for you. Make sure your whole staff knows exactly what your plan is, who to call. And then also, not only just knowing your BD guy for all the companies up here, but go a little deeper with them. Get to know the actual guys that are going to be showing up, the project managers, the estimators. Those are the guys that are, when the rubber meets the road, they're the ones getting it done. And it's awful nice to know who that's going to be that's going to show up. I mean, Richie's a good looking guy, but he's not out there extracting water. He's got a job to do too. So know who all the players are with your selected contractor.
Yeah.
I would concur with pretty much everything that they've all said. The only thing I might add is would kind of have a depth chart of contacts to call, resources to call. You all would do yourself a disservice if you have one company and one company only, because if they're covered up, they can't get to you. They put you on a waiting list. Have multiple resources, and I'm sitting here with competitors saying that, but that's the right thing for you guys to have. So have a depth chart for all of your personnel to make sure they're aware of it and know where to find it, so that, hey, if these guys aren't available, go to the next one on the list, but give yourself options.
All right, you spoke about reliable vendors coming in. How can FMs vet vendors ahead of time? How does that work for you guys, to make sure that we're getting reliable people in our building?
I would say get referrals, and IFMA is a great resource for that. Just getting to know who your colleagues have used. Yeah, best way I can think of.
So you can always go through the extensive RFP process, which is certainly can be, long and certainly an arduous process to go through, but referrals, of course. And we like to ask if you can see their facilities, ask if you can see what their resources are. We certainly like to invite people to take a look through, and then also talk to people that ask for referrals from the person that you're interviewing for your vendor, and see if you can make those calls. And usually you'll be able to get a solid answer one way or the other.
So I got a question, Robin, a follow-up question. So on like an RFP, so if a FM professional puts together an RFP and then those results come back, how would you even begin to evaluate the pricing? Because it's lots of things are priced by the hour, lots of things are priced by a lump sum. You got mobilization, and you've got some square foot price. I mean, how would you even sort through that?
It's a really a big challenge. We've just gone through kind of helping to direct an entity on an RFP process, and they had the exact same questions. And when it came back, it's really hard to determine if you're going to have somebody who's extremely competitive, meaning the price is really, really low, and you've got somebody who's extremely high, and some people in between. So companies in between. So how would you can't depend on the RFP process because it's subjective and not objective, unless there are objective points that are specifically assigned to it, a task that's included in the RFP. It is an arduous process for that reason. And usually public institutions don't hesitate to do RFPs, but companies, privately held companies, it's a lot to ask.
Anything to add on the vetting process?
Yeah, a little follow up to hers, but I'll get back to kind of your original. RFPs work for a lot of governmental agencies because they've got to lock in a certain price. But at the end of the day, if we're working with your carrier, your insurance carrier, we're all using the same price list. Every month it's a new price list. So we don't dictate the price. No, if we're using Xactimate up here, if it's the size of job that they want to use Xactimate versus time and material, the price is set. We don't set it. All we can do is make sure the scope is correct. And so there's really no arguing over the price. It's set by the scope itself. So whoever's cheaper in that sense, in that situation, probably missed the most on the scope. Or if somebody's exorbitantly high, they've added a bunch of fluff in there. So that's where it can get a little, you can get in the weeds on an RFP for emergency response. And it's not like we're building widgets where we're doing 1,000 of these. Every job is different. So it's not, it's hard to give you a break. We're not doing 1 million of these. We're doing one of these, hopefully, and hopefully one only, you know. Back to your original though, as far as vetting, by a show of hands, in the facilities that you guys manage right now, does anybody have a project right now that maybe it's small, it's a pain in your butt, you'll get around to it, but it's something you know you need done? Anybody have anything like that right now on their, in any of their facilities?
Every day.
Okay, I was gonna say, you guys got it together, that's awesome. In our experience, and my experience personally, I don't want, if we've just met and maybe Richard George has been out to see you and you're just getting to know us, but you've never seen us in action, I would rather you say, I tell you what, I've got this pain in the butt job over here. Nobody's really interested in it because it's not a moneymaker. Turn me loose on that. Give me an opportunity to show you what we're about. So that way we can introduce you to our players. You can kind of learn, a little bit about us in the process, see how we work through stuff that maybe is not going to pay us very well. That's okay. I'm good with that because I know I've got to earn your jobs. I don't expect you to call me on the first job ever, and it's a multi-million-dollar job. I wouldn't expect that call because I haven't earned anything from you. So those jobs that just kind of a pain in your neck, turn somebody loose with that and say, here, let's see how you do with that. It's kind of like kids, right? You give them a little bit more leash, and then eventually you can let them cross the road by themselves, right? Same thing.
I think they covered most of it. I would just kind of add to his is that, try to build that relationship with your vendor up front on the smaller things. I mean, like he said, and I'm the same way. I wouldn't expect to, call you guys and be like, hey, heard you have a $2 million fire loss. Will you give us the job? I wouldn't give it to somebody if I didn't know who they were. So, try us out, try whoever out on the smaller stuff, get to know them, build those relationships, and then you have those people, the key players in place when you need them.
Thank you.
So we've got about 15 minutes left, so we do have some time for some questions. So who wants to lead with a question?
I don't have a question, but I was gonna give a tip. So any commercial property for you facility managers, when they were talking about tip, you can't actually start restoration a lot of times until those building materials have been assessed, not just for compliance, but asbestos, lead. So throughout your renovations, keep documentation of that because it'll save so much time. Sometimes you're waiting for those things to be, assessed to find out is there lead, is there asbestos. So that was just another tip I was thinking about to share.
That's a good tip.
Thank you. So to that point, so if you don't have the documentation and your team arrives and you encounter asbestos,
Well, what we're gonna do first is
How do
we're
you
gonna stabilize the situation. Immediately stabilize, make sure that, water shut off and any water that we can move out the way is out of the way of its water. But we can't cut into any drywall until we have asbestos testing done. And lead is less, we do, if the building's old, of course, it's going to be a consideration, but asbestos is something that we can't ever be sure that it's not in the drywall, so we have to test for it. So that would just mean we would continue drying the exterior of the wall, but we can't cut and get in behind it for maybe a day.
so you have a large commercial building built in the 1960s, steel structure, concrete, the underfloors are sprayed, the bottom of every floor the ceiling of every floor is sprayed, all the steel beams are sprayed, you have a flood, that asbestos rains down. If, especially depending on what the ceiling tiles have done, if they have not collapsed, if they've collapsed, then you have asbestos everywhere.
Mhm.
So are you working, do you have internal staff that deals with that? Are you calling in other partners? How is that?
We would call in a certified asbestos abatement company. That you get into a whole other realm of licensing and risk. And it's in our world, it's best to keep everybody in their lane. Everybody does a specific task. So yeah, you're going to bring in the experts for that. But kind of wrapping up, I guess, or putting all this together, that report you're talking about, and actually your next question was going to get to that, and you stole our thunder.
Ah.
I had a dinger for that one. No, if we show up and you guys have that, that survey that's been done for, so any potentially asbestos containing materials, that building has been surveyed. And it could have been a building you just did a ribbon cutting on yesterday. It doesn't matter in the eyes of the EPA. They're going to come in, and I don't know if you guys have ever had them show up on your door. They don't leave until you provide them the documents. So they don't care what you've done or what else you've got to do that day. They're not leaving until you have documentation on the projects that you've completed. So it's not a fun endeavor to take on. So we're going to be dang sure that we've got all of that documentation, says we've done it by the books. So we show up on first day. Yeah, we're extracting water. We're stabilizing, adding humidification, the whole 9 yards. But if you've got that document and there's materials that we can take out to speed up that process, you've got that document in hand. That's like gold, because we're going to work today. Not to mention, 2 winters ago, I think it was around Super Bowl weekend or New Year's. No, it was New Year's 2 years ago. It was the first time that I've actually heard from other restoration contractors around town that were actually turning away commercial clients. Everybody was slammed. There wasn't a piece of equipment available for rent within 12-hour drive from here. So the first people to stack up as far as being behind were all the hygienists that were needing to come in to take tests. There were hygienists saying, I can't get there to even take your sample for 3 days. Okay, we know in 72 hours you're going to have microbial growth. So 3 days just to take a sample, then they're sending it off 3 states away. So it's going to be a week before you have results. So if you've got that golden ticket, we're going right to work. That's awesome.
So was that when it was 30 below
Yes.
for a week?
Yeah.
Solid?
Yep.
Yeah. And to that point, and to Braden's point of maintenance, lots of generators failed because they got cheap on fuel testing and not running the generators long enough and not maintaining the generators. And when that temperature went down to 30 below and Evergy was doing the rolling blackouts, I mean, that was a regional issue. Sprinkler pipes are freezing, garage sprinklers are freezing. I mean, that was a mess. That was a mess. So yeah, easily forgotten.
Piggybacking, any other golden tickets we need to talk about for facility managers besides us? Good point. Do you guys think of documents?
I mean, we've talked about it. I don't think it can be said enough, but to have, that everyone knows, that would be my only contribution in that.
Any other questions? Becky?
Plans, again, not a question, but a tip. For those of you who don't know, Becky Ballhars, I just left 12 and a half years of FEMA. And one of the things they always made me keep, and I didn't make me, I had to keep, was what we called a restitution document. And it tells you everything you need. If you can no longer work in this facility long-term, it was ready to hand to in our case, it would have been GSA, but it would have been ready to hand to a realtor, your broker, and go, find me a new facility. This is the kind of space I need. It's that programming document. And I would update it about every 2 years. We didn't change that much. Our head count didn't, but, and also just know, what do you need your first of all, call tree, yes, know your vendor partners, but also know your management and your people call list. And for me, I had 2 phones. And so I would make sure it's also on my personal phone if for some reason I didn't have that with me. But who do you call and what does it take? Because your management's gonna say, when can we get back to work? And with COVID, it's gonna be a lot easier now because most of us have all teleworked for a while and we'll just send everyone home. And that might work for a while, but you'll still need some place to maybe have meetings and get together. And we would have agreements, not on as part of every constitution, but we'd have agreements where, okay, we might go to hotel ballrooms and have meetings. Or, if you know someone that's got a conference center, one of our, conference center or something like that, can we use those? But they want to know, how can we keep business going? What's it gonna take? And so that's part of the planning document I would have had ready to hand over is, you guys may still renovate it because we might be out just a year. So do we need a temp space? But, what do we need? And so while we're handing you your documents, I'm also maybe handing a realtor, a broker. This is what I need space-wise.
Especially on a large scale loss, if it's a tornado, it's not just gonna be your facility, you're talking about coworkers' lives that are impacted, their homes, so it goes beyond just a plan for the facility.
Well, that leads to, we were required to take our laptops home every night at FEMA. Because if a tornado does come through, a fire, people need to be able to continue to work. It's gonna be kind of a pain in the rear to carry it home every night, but we were prepared. It was another step in preparedness, and all of that. So anyway.
Was it Brock with IMA?
I'm sorry,
Was it Brock with IMA that was here?
Braden?
Braden, I'm sorry.
Yes.
There's something that he would have probably said to your point. He would have probably said, work with your agent and look at your coverage for business interruption. Make sure it's sufficient to handle a 3-month, 6-month, 12-month loss where you're potentially completely vacated from your space. Just like you would look at sewer backup riders, they're separate parts of those policies that they may cover smaller amounts, but there are separate riders for different types of loss. And business interruption would be one that you guys would definitely want to review to make sure that you've got the adequate coverage you need.
And another business interruption, it's hard to bring up, but it's something that happens is, like an active shooter or something. I've heard there, I remember going to an IFMA conference or something, and this was many years ago in Chicago. There was a shooting on Navy Pier. They didn't get back into their building, I think, for a few months. The building was fine, but it was an active crime scene. And so they were out in that capacity too. Building was fine. Everyone could have gone back to work, but they weren't allowed back in. So again, FEMA has really great stuff, particularly for your home, and they've got some guidelines, but they have like 26 disasters to prepare for, more than you and I think of, from nuclear to this, to that, to fire, to everything. And so it actually just makes you kind of go through the list going, okay, if this happens, what would we, and they, particularly for your home, they have, it's ready.gov, but they have it ready and tells you this is what you need. If there is some kind of a toxic cloud, you need to tape up your windows, and it tells you to do that and all that. So I'll just put in, even though I'm not working there anymore, I'll still put a plug in because we all need to be prepared.
So if there's any takeaway, it is document, be prepared, emergency preparedness plan, disaster recovery plan, which is different than emergency preparedness plan. And talking to Braden, thank you for bringing that up. What Braden also stated was, so you have a client, they have a business that basically is destroyed by a tornado or fire. To the employees, if they're a manufacturer, the employees can't work. So some of those riders would include like an income loss rider, so that you could pay the 100 families that are working for your business until you could get your business rebuilt, which will take 1 to 2 years, maybe somewhere in that capacity. So thank you, Becky, for sharing that.
I think that's a huge thing that everybody should review their policies once a year and make sure that you are covered for all the different items, whether it's business interruption or even just being insured for enough money. I see that all the time where, you know, their policy limit won't touch what it actually costs today because people, they get insurance and they don't ever go look at it again. And the cost of things go up. And if you don't look at that, you know, once a year, every couple of years, you're going to get caught with your pants down and it's going to be a big problem.
We've seen that more lately, more so on the residential side where people they just don't have the coverage that they were fine 10 years ago. Their homes appreciated by, 30-40% since then. And they're underinsured by a couple $100,000. So they don't have enough money to rebuild their house. So now they're okay, what are we going to take out just so we can get the shell back up?
So if you're in an older building, code coverage is a huge one because if there's items that when stuff goes to be put back, insurance pays for like. Well, if now the city and codes are requiring you do it this much better and have to do these additional items, that's when your code coverage kicks in. Without that, you have to pay for that out of pocket. So I would definitely get with your brokers and look at your actual documents and make sure that you are covered for all this stuff and you have the right coverage and right amounts.
Thank you for that. So everybody in the room, if you haven't checked all the boxes we talked about today, you all have homework to do. And that includes networking with your risk management people, networking with your procurement people, and reaching out to some of these amazing people to get your documents in order.
Let's check and see if any questions came in online. Any
Good.
questions?
How's that online thing going, by the way?
I've gotten good feedback.
Okay, good. So I'm gonna give you back 2 minutes, and our next meeting is November 18th at the Capitol Federal Building at 95th and Knoll. And Gil Bain will be presenting a major project and renovation that they did, and it's called Transition Planning and Management, and it involves an existing, very large building that was remodeled inside and outside with the occupants still there. So we hope to see you on November 18th. A special thank you to our panelists. We really appreciate it. Have a So thank you, and we appreciate you sharing your time today.
What's your name?
How's it going?